All right, this is explaining some of the topics from homework 1-2. So homework 1-2, here we go. This is a two-way frequency table. You're going to have to read through this problem or each problem and set up the table. So in this case, we've got 43 students in grades 7 and 8, and we ask them, what is your favorite sport? And there are the results. 14 students in 7th grade and 8 students in 8th grade choose basketball. 10 students in 7th and 11 students in 8th chose swimming. So then you're going to have a situation below where you've got to set up the table. So these little things here will be drop down tabs where you're going to have to set up the table. So we've got 7th and 8th graders, and we got basketballs and swimmers. So when we select, we want to select something like this. We'd pick the 7th and the 8th grade. They'd go together on one side, while the different sports would go on the other side. And then we just plug things in. So it says we had 14 students in the 7th grade that like basketball. So we come in here and we plug in 14. And then we got eight students in the 8th grade that like basketball. All right. And then we got 10 students in the 7th grade that like swimming. And we have 11 in the 8th grade that like swimming. Okay. If you want to make sure you haven't made a mistake, you could total all four of these numbers up, and it should give you 43, because that's what they told us. That's how many students they told us we had. All right. So easy enough, I hope. The one that may cause you a little bit, well, it's going to take you a little bit longer. It's not a harder problem necessarily, but it's just going to take you a little bit longer, is the one where you're dealing with types of sampling. Okay, so the question reads like this. Let me pull this down. Counselors at a college want to poll students about how much time students spend studying. Which of the following best describes a random sample of students? Okay, so you need to understand, what is a random sample of students? Okay, what is random sampling? If you'll look in the next one, the next question, we just go ahead and head down and look at it. It's going to ask us, organizers at a conference want to survey attendees about the registration fee. Which of the following best describes a cluster sample? Okay, so you get there. These are going to ask you about different sampling techniques. So it's very important that you understand the different sampling techniques. And here's a list of them. So we have these types here. Random sampling is, well, you can read the definition there, all right? But that is the most common type of sampling that you would want to use when you're doing when you're having to sample a population. And the reason these are important is anytime you're doing statistics, it's very difficult to survey a whole population. We rarely do that. So you have to pick a good sample of the population to try to get a read on what's actually going on in the population. So you have systematic sampling, you have stratified, you have cluster, and you have a convenience sample. So what you're going to do, what I suggest you do is ask, go read your question. In this case, it's a random sample in this first one here, and then go see what it says about a random sample. Okay, it says this says a sample of predetermined, of a predetermined size is chosen from a population. Care is taken to choose the sample in such a way that every sample of that size is equally likely to be selected. That's really the key there. All right. So then when I go back up here and I read through the different possibilities, the first one says the counselors use a computer program to draw 60 students at random and select these students. Every set of 60 is equally likely to be drawn by the computer program. Well, that's kind of ringing true to what this definition down here just said. But just to be careful, I will go read the other ones. The students living in a particular dorm building on campus are easily accessible, so the counselor selects 60 students living in the particular dorm building. Well, that looks like they're doing that because it's easily they're all in the same dorm, so and they're easily accessible. That sounds something like a convenience sample to me. Let's just read this last one and see what it says. The counselors form 5 groups of students based on the number of classes the students are taking. Then the counselors select 12 students at random from each group. So they're forming groups based on the number of classes. So I'm thinking that's a stratified one because the population is divided into groups, each made up of members that share some particular characteristic. In this case, fixed number of classes, or a number of classes, and then a fixed number of members is chosen from each group. So that sounds like a stratified. So I'm thinking this is this is the one I'm going to go with as far as being a random sample. All right. So it's just a matter of, I'm not going to go necessarily read through this next one. You're looking for a cluster sample. So this cluster sample is a population that's divided into groups that tend to exist naturally, such as cities in a state. Then all members of some randomly chosen groups, but not all the groups are selected. So in this case, you're dividing them up into groups, and then you're going to not take from each group. You're actually just going to take whole groups. But not all the groups, but you'll take some of the groups and you'll pick those groups at random. So there's a lot of reading here. Be careful, take your time. You can get through this. If you need help, email me or call me, and I'd be glad to help you out.